Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Omaha Joe Stanton, ready for some Week 4 Thursday night football action. And Joe is fresh off a trip to Arrowhead to watch the Chiefs and Chargers last week. Joe, how was your trip?
It was awesome. It was such a cool environment. Atmosphere was crazy. I was probably rooting for the Chiefs because I felt like maybe I would have been ridiculed otherwise. Of course, I'm a Broncos fan, so just happy to get out there to see an AFC West matchup. It was a blast. Tight game script. The Chiefs fans obviously weren't too happy walking away, but it was such a cool game, great environment. You got to get out there, man.
Yeah, I bet. As we talked beforehand, I've been to the area because I've seen lots of Royals games there, but I've never been to a Chiefs game in person. So great spot. You see lots of red when you're there, right? I mean, that's a good spot to watch a game, I'm sure. I wish you'd scouted one of these teams, Jacksonville or Cincinnati. I mean, come on.
Right. Well, wish I made my way down to Florida, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what Game Pass is for, so we can watch the games and get ready. So we're coming off a strong Week 3, Joe. While you were out there, at the stadium, we finished off a strong week. Last Thursday was good, and then the main slate was great. So let's get going here on Week 4. We've got our regular kickoff. We're into that schedule where you blink after Wednesday or Monday night game, and then you're ready for the next week on Thursday. So let's talk about Jacksonville and Cincinnati. We've got the 0-3 Jags traveling to play the Bengals at 2-1. Bengals are the big favorites here by 7.5 at home with an over-under of 46. That's at BetUS.com.pa, one of our partners. Talk to me about this Jacksonville side, Joe. They've got a new look with Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence, and so far it hasn't worked very well at 0-3.
No, and I think, I was hoping Urban Meyer would really transfer over to the NFL scene. Not so much so far. Actually, I read something that he was grasping for straws a little bit, and he reached out to Joe Burrow to ask for advice to give Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
And now they're meeting Thursday night. Urban's on his last leg. And this Jacksonville team is definitely underperforming. We've been attacking them on our weekend slates. Cincinnati is exceeding expectations. I'm sure one of our members, one of our people of our team, Tyler, is pretty excited about that. Same with Chach. But as far as Jacksonville and the passing game goes, Trevor Lawrence, he's a rookie QB. He's thrown 7 interceptions this season, kind of to be expected. But he's also thrown 5 touchdowns, and that's where I want to hit on for this game. Because I actually don't think Trevor Lawrence is a bad play in this game. And here's the reason why. They are letting him make mistakes and really throw the ball. 3 of his 5 touchdowns have been on 20-yard plus throws. And he is really throwing it downfield. And on those connects to normally Marvin Jones, and we'll get there, they have been solid. He actually is up there with the Mahomes for, I think he's in the top 5 for deep passes among NFL quarterbacks. So they're not taking it easy with Trevor Lawrence, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say. I think there's a breakout coming, and according to PFF, one of our sponsors as well, giving us all of our analytics, Bengals are below average in their pass rush and defensive coverage against wide receivers. They have been letting up big totals. I actually think, looking at the Jacksonville schedule and for Trevor Lawrence, this is something I have pinned that I think Trevor Lawrence could come out and have a good game and break out of his rookie slump. And it's going to rely on a lot of the pass game, which I think is going to come with the game script. I think they are going to be passing a lot. So I'm not going to miss my shot on Trevor Lawrence having a breakout, and I actually do think this game script could lead to that. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is too bad. But
interesting.
It's great to say I don't think Trevor Lawrence is too bad. So what's your take here?
Well, you mentioned the 7 interceptions. He also has 2 fumbles. And so let's do some quick math here, Joe. That's 9 turnovers in 3 games. That's an average of 3 per game.
Well, they were playing my Broncos, and we're pretty stout.
Yeah. How about Houston week 1?
There you go.
So, I mean, you can't win in the NFL, really, when your quarterback averages 3 turnovers per game. It's just almost impossible, especially when you have the rest of the roster, a new coach. So not a good recipe. You like the aggressiveness, the downfield throws. He's put up some yardage. But look at how about the completion percentage? Only 54%, while Joe Burrow on the other side is 70%. Maybe that's the advice he gave Urban was, well, tell him to hit his own team more than 54% of the time. That would be a start. So the volume should be there because we do think they'll be trailing. Could put up some yards. It's just a question of, does he take care of the ball a little bit better?
Yeah.
The other thing is, you mentioned that Cincinnati has been a little bit beatable through the air. It's a better matchup than on the ground, but they should be getting Trey Waynes back here to bolster that secondary. So it might be a little bit tougher for some of these matchups. But what if you do go Trevor Lawrence, who are you looking to pair him up with for wide receivers?
I would probably want to pair him up with his favorite target, Marvin Jones Jr. And actually, how Trevor Lawrence is graded out, his most successful pass has so far been 20 yards out to the right, deep right. It's just his most efficient pass, surprisingly, and that's Marvin Jones' best reception this season as well. Jones has had 27 targets in 3 games. He's clearly the number 1 favorite. He's getting the red zone looks. He's had 9 targets in the red zone. So, yeah, I think Jones is a strong play. Like you said, we've been attacking Apple on the Bengals side, and with him potentially getting less run here, that's not favorable. I'll throw this one back at you on the last Trevor Lawrence debate. Peyton Manning had more interceptions in his first 3 games as an NFL QB. He had more than 7 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence isn't as bad as Peyton Manning. I'll end it there, but that was an interesting stat I did come across.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Peyton was talking about that on Monday night. I don't know how many of our viewers have watched the Manning brothers. I really enjoy it. Yeah. I mean, they break it down. They're really, breaking down the tape, and they have some interesting interviews. But he was talking about that rookie year and how he got used to losing. He obviously wasn't used to losing when he got to the NFL, just like Trevor Lawrence. He kind of got used to it his rookie year, and it made it a lot tougher for him to be motivated. So how about that? I'll throw it back to you. Is Lawrence just already going to throw in the towel? All right, we're going to lose again. Turnovers don't matter. That's going to be his battle here. Does he cherish the possession enough to limit these mistakes at some point? So
that's a good point. That's a good point, and I agree. The Manning broadcast is sweet. I love how they break it down. They're a fun crew. I'll finish it out with the wide receivers and let you get your take. But you got Chark and Shenault as well for the wide receivers. Chark has been targeted a little bit more, or he hasn't been targeted more. They've been targeted the same. Chark with 19 targets, Shenault with 20 targets. However, Shenault's had 1 target in the end zone, 0 touchdowns on the year, where Chark is having 2 touchdowns on 2 targets in the end zone. So he's batting 100 on 2 for 2. He's actually averaging, and that's a little inflated stat, he's averaging 22 yards per reception. So Chark is getting targeted on these deep flyers. So outside of Jones Jr., who's going to have the more consistent production, I would say if you're looking GPP, which is probably where you're looking if you are going to stack Trevor Lawrence with these guys, Chark would be the one to take a flyer on. That's who I would take a flyer on. I think he would be more adept to get the deep targets for a touchdown. But overall, that's pretty much my take on the wide receivers. Would love to hear what you think about those 3 guys.
Yeah, well said. I would go in that general order as well. Chark, definitely more of a big play touchdown guy. Shenault, more of a PPR guy. Might rack up a couple more catches, but unlikely to get the big yardage or the touchdown. So he's a little more attractive on DraftKings, but he's not much cheaper than Chark.
No.
And again, in general, I'm just not much on this passing game. I like the other side a lot better, so I won't have much room for these guys. I do like the lead running back here, Mr. James Robinson. Let me tell you why. Cincinnati's been pretty good against the run. If you look at the yardage that opposing running backs have gotten on the ground, Dalvin Cook, 20 carries for only 61 yards. David Montgomery, exact same stats, so not good. We're talking about just over 3 yards a carry. Harris last week for Pittsburgh, 14 carries, only 40 yards. But Najee Harris, 14 receptions for 102 yards. Big Ben kept checking it down. and Harris just racked up the points. Dalvin Cook also had 6 catches for 43. So those are big numbers. And, James Robinson, obviously the best pass catcher for this Jacksonville backfield. He's got 12 on the season. He is averaging over 5 yards per carry, too, when he does get to run it. So James Robinson is my favorite play on Jacksonville. If they're trailing, I think he'll get a lot of check downs. And the other thing I like about Robinson is last week he had 21 touches. Carlos Hyde only had 8. People were freaking out in week 1, especially season-long players, when Hyde got all those touches. But much better ratio now for the James Robinson lovers in the world. So I like Robinson here, and I expect to roster him quite a bit.
I like that. And I like where you're looking there as in a receiving back for the Jacksonville team, because the Bengals are graded out as the 6th best run defense. And although Jacksonville has a run advantage, they just lost their tight end O'Shaughnessy, replaced by Dan Arnold. And O'Shaughnessy was actually the best run blocker for the Jacksonville defense. And Jacksonville offensive line. And Dan Arnold comes in and he is a much worse run blocker. He's actually below average. O'Shaughnessy was pretty much one of the best in the league. So I agree. I actually don't think the running game will be there as much for Jacksonville, especially if they're going to be coming behind in this game script. However, like you said, people were kind of freaking out in the first week with Hyde getting in there. And that honestly could have been just because of the blowout. And actually, Robinson had a little bit of some drop passes in that game. They let Hyde work it in. But that's pretty much flushed out. I think as far as the receiving game goes, maybe Trevor Lawrence tries to play it safe for this game and goes and says, I'm going to check it down and get advantage there. So I definitely agree with you. Robinson finally saw the touchdown, the end zone last week. That just set him up getting better here. And he's the 3rd down back. He'll be out there even in an uphill battle for the Jaguars. So I agree. I really like James Robinson here. I mentioned the tight ends a little bit. I said they brought in Dan Arnold. Andrew, we don't even know if he's going to be out there for Thursday, at least not right now when we're recording this. And that kind of makes sense. It's a short turnaround. Well, it's a short turnaround for the weeks. He was actually on our last Thursday night football game. But he has to get acclimated with the team. We don't know if he's going to be out there. What do you think about the other tight ends in this Jacksonville locker room?
Yeah, if Arnold plays, and again, this is Wednesday night, so we'll have to wait and see who's active or not. If he plays for the reasons you said, I'm not huge on him here. The interesting thing is which site we're on here, because on DraftKings he's 4,400. Jacob Hollister is only 1,000, whereas on FanDuel they're both 7,000. So FanDuel just said, all right, we're just going to make the Jacksonville tight end 7,000 no matter what. DraftKings has priced them differently, and if Arnold is not playing, I would consider Hollister on DraftKings at 1,000. He got 6 targets last week, caught 2 balls. He's had plenty of success with Seattle. Yep. He's not like a big blocking tight end. He's more of a receiver in terms of his size, and he got in the end zone a bunch with Russell Wilson. So at 1,000, I would consider him. Maybe not my first lineup, but in potentially a GPP lineup. And then Luke Farrell had 1 catch last week for -1 yards. He's only 200, so again, deep GPP option. But the tight end spot is not a hot spot against Cincinnati. They've been pretty strong against tight ends, so I'm not crazy about this group.
Yeah, it's not my favorite either, but like you said, he's priced at 1,000. It's hard not to bat an eye at that when he's getting 6 targets. And like you said, Gerald Everett came in for Seattle, so he moved to Jacksonville. But with the amount of upside he has, and again, like his price tag, how are you not going to bat an eye at that? But what you might bat an eye at and might miss is that the Jacksonville kicker is not on. It's not on the slate.
Yeah, you might miss that. So that's why we're here for you. One of the big reasons we're here to talk about kickers. So Lambeau is out for personal reasons. Wright is going to be the Jacksonville kicker, but he's nowhere to be found on either site, DraftKings or FanDuel. Again, this is Wednesday night, so maybe they update that. But don't go. You can go looking for him, but you're not going to find him. So you can take that out of the mix here. All right, Joe. Before we transition to the Cincinnati side, You want to tell folks how they can join us to get some of these lineups tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. So you actually might see the ticker scrolling at the bottom. We have a lot of offers down there. A free 2-month membership when you sign up with our partner BetUS. You can try us out for our 3-day membership. It's $10 for 3 days. For NFL, it's perfect. We actually offer a 5-day pass for $19. A lot of people did that in week 3. Gets you in here for the Thursday, finishes you on the Monday, and you get a whole week of NFL to try. Of course, we have our NFL DFS season-long passage, which is a great deal as well. You can find all of that. Oh, it's over here at dfscoachtalk.com. Sign up for a membership. Follow us on Twitter as well at DFS Coach Talk, because we often like to throw out a lot of contests for retweets and likes on the video, and it could get you in here as well. But you get to join our Discord. You get all of our lineups on FanDuel and our clipboard on DraftKings for all of our sports. We don't separate, and it's just a great opportunity, and we would love to have you in here.
Yeah, quick note, if you are going to sign up for betus.com.pa, you have to use the promo code CoachTalk, and it has to be your first deposit there if you want the 2 free months. So definitely jump on that if you want. And like you said, Joe, any other membership, go through dfscoachtalk.com, and you're going to get all the sports that we offer. So I'd love to have you there. All right, Cincinnati. They're 7.5-point favorites. Why? Well, I think it's because of their passing game. Joe Burrow and company. I'd like to get some big exposure here. Jacksonville giving up over 300 yards per game through the air. Burrow, like I mentioned, nice 70% completion percentage. Takes care of the ball a lot better than your buddy Trevor Lawrence. Only 4 interceptions this year. So not perfect, but he's got that experience. And you know that Jacksonville has given up 4 100-yard receiving games already. Brandon Cooks, your boy Sutton, A.J. Green, and Christian Kirk last week. So, yes, T. Higgins is out. Okay, big news. We got to adjust a little bit. But we still have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and then Auden Tate is that third option. I'm interested in all these guys, Joe. According to Pro Football Focus, Tyler Boyd has the best overall matchup in this game for wide receivers. But I also like the matchup for Chase. These guys, Boyd is mostly in the slot, but Chase will move around a little bit. And so they'll get some different matchups. And I like both of those guys. And Auden Tate only had 1 target, 1 catch last week, but he's ultra cheap on DraftKings. He's $400. So you could mix him in. But I'm going to have a lot of Burrow to Chase and Boyd. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I really do like Burrow. He turned it around last week. Against the Bears, he had 3 interceptions. But last week, he went 14 for 18, 122 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And he was aggressive as well. He actually started off the game with 3 passes, deep balls going 20 yards, and that's actually what he had an interception on. But he bounced back. And he really did turn it around. And like you said, Jacksonville actually grades out as having the worst pass coverage and the worst overall defense on PFF. So they are absolutely letting them beat them in the air. And for a while there, Cincinnati's O-line didn't look too solid. They actually don't grade out too well in PFF. But last week, there was no sacks allowed to Burrow, and he was only hit once. So clearly they gave him time in the pocket, and I actually think that resulted in him having a really solid game. And with Jacksonville's defensive line not being super strong, I think he's going to have the same amount of time, and I think you can expect, or at least I expect, a similar production here and a good game when given Burrow time. And like you said, I think Boyd and Chase are the ones I want to target this week. Boyd has had the most targets overall in the season, outdoing Chase, but Chase has had the more touchdowns. He's had 4 touchdowns to Boyd's 1. And last week with T. Higgins being out, Boyd did take that jump. I kind of expected a couple other guys to take that jump as well, but it did seem like all the usage just went right back to Boyd and Jamar Chase. Of course, there was the big thing in the preseason that Jamar Chase couldn't get separation in practice and he was dropping balls. I don't know who planted that story because he's looking good so far to me. So I do like Boyd and Chase here. I like the Burrow to Chase connection a lot. I think it's going to be really popular. So I think if you're going to go Boyd, that's good as well. And if you can fit both of them there, I think that's great. Between the other wide receivers of Tate and Mike Thomas, I actually kind of like Thomas as a deep punt play, purely for volume. He's had 4 targets on the season. I like the way he's running. I think he looks good on the field. I would say they grade out pretty similar, but just for volume up to this point, I think Mike Thomas might get a few more looks. And if you are going to take a punt play, you're probably going to be wanting to just look for opportunity in general. And that's maybe where I'll go. But whatever your preference is there, I think strong. But yeah, I agree. Overall with the offense here for Cincinnati, I really like it.
Okay. Yeah, one of the other guys who some may have thought would have gotten some more of that target share is the tight end CJ Uzomah. He only got 1 target last week, 5 targets on the season. So that's a bit of a wild card. He's a little expensive for me, I think. Probably not a guy that I want to put in my first lineup. Tight ends have been a little bit better against Jacksonville than vice versa. We saw your Denver tight ends combine for 857 in a score against them. But not really a smash matchup for either tight end group. So do you have any big preference for him, or do you want to talk about Joe Mixon in this running game?
I'll give it a thought.
Okay.
Probably not on Uzomah.
Okay.
And then we go on to Joe Mixon.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. But for Joe Mixon, I actually think it's a good game script. Being that we think the Bengals are going to be up in this game, I actually see Joe Mixon is getting about 21 attempts, at least 20 plus here on the ground. The volume is going to be there. Of course, Edmonds and Connor last week for Arizona did combine for 2 scores against this Jacksonville. Granted, they punched it in at the goal line. It wasn't like they worked their ways down the field. Of course, that was Kyler Murray running that home. But Jacksonville was susceptible to those touchdown runs in the end zone. And Joe Mixon on PFF actually grades out as the 3rd best running back this week on PFF. So I think the upside is there in this game. He's going to be a popular option. I think looking at everything we've said overall, we like these pass catchers a little bit more. Burrow should have the time in the pocket, and we should have a good game. But the volume's there for Joe Mixon. I just don't know if I'm going to want to go there with his price tag and just the fact that I think a lot of other people are going to be on him as well.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. Mixon, you got to love the snap share, how many touches he gets compared to Samaje Perine, and Chris Evans has caught a couple balls.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one place you could look, but not. I'm really looking at Mixon or pass on this backfield, and I like what you mentioned about Arizona getting in the end zone a couple times on the ground. Kyler Murray also ran one in. And this is a better matchup on the ground, I think, in terms of yardage per carry than the Jacksonville backs will have. But it's not a smash spot. Arizona had 22 carries for 69. Denver was closer to 4 yards per carry, but under. And Houston was okay, that first week. They ran a couple in as well against Jacksonville. So, I could see Mixon getting a bunch of touches and with the volume, having a strong game. But I think that is the X factor here. Do we fade him in our primary lineup and load up on the passing game for Cincinnati? Or do we find a way to get him in there? That's going to be the key determination, I think, this week.
I agree with you there because we like him. It's not like we're going to say he's going to have a bad game, but we're talking so highly of these other guys. There's leverage there, and also he's expensive. I don't know if I want to fit him into my lineup as some of these pass catchers, like we already said, especially if you think Joe Burrow is going to have a good game, especially if you're going to take the chance on Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be a big thing to decide with Mixon. And right now, I might be leaning towards that contrarian play and maybe leaving him outside my lineup. But we'll see. I still have a full day to think about that, and that's the joy of our members. Where we're going to give them and talk with them in Discord because some of our members are real bright. They've got some opinions here, and I'm sure they'll give us some insight as well. It's been great chatting with everyone in our Discord.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of fun. And before we get to any final thoughts here, Joe, you like to talk kickers, so I'll just mention that the one kicker on this slate, Evan McPherson, pretty solid start. 4 for 4. He's had 2 50-yard field goals and a 40-yarder. So he's put up pretty good points in limited opportunities. So just keep him in mind if you want to get your kicker fix this week.
I like it. I don't mind it in a low-scoring game. Always good for a kicker here. Glad you got to mention him.
All right. Any final thoughts here, Joe? Are you ready to take down all the money?
Yeah, let's get after it. I'm excited, and I'm also excited to join on the podcast for this weekend. We did that in week 2. We had myself, you, and Crash. We had the three panels right here. That was a blast. So we're gonna get after it this week as well, and that'll be a good time.
Yeah, we're gonna get that out early this week to everybody. Friday night.
Yeah.
Well, Friday night lights with the 3-man booth. So set your alarm via YouTube, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll get that main slate podcast out. We'll get our primetime podcast out to you as well, of course. So jump in with us for the entire season here. We're going to crush NFL, and grab one of those memberships if you'd like this week. DFSCoachTalk.com. Join here Wednesday night or Thursday. Get our Thursday night lineups. Full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo. The core for DraftKings, and then the full lineups and the DraftKings Coaches Clipboard on Sunday for the main slate, with baseball and golf in the meantime. I got to go post my golf lineups, Joe, so we should wrap it up here. Great talking with you again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. On behalf of Omaha, Joe Stanton, and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.